I do like a bit of karaoke, if I'm drunk enough. Let me know when you're ready.
We're streaming now.
Right. Okay, welcome.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Oulton Park for the opening round of the 2020 Dunlop Touring Car Trophy incorporating TCR UK. We're at a very damp but very scenic Oulton Park circuit, and regardless of the weather, we are all very, very happy to be here. It's been a delayed start to the season for obvious reasons. This is the first race event to take part in this part of the country so far this season, and the cars just heading out onto the circuit now for their qualifying session ahead of the first two races. Two races coming up later on this afternoon for the Touring Car Trophy, and a few key changes ahead of this 2020 season to let you know about. Basically, we've got as last season, the merged grid with both TCR cars and NGTC cars racing together. This year, though, they all score points towards the same championship. So the TCR cars, whereas last year they had a separate championship, a separate point system. That's not the case in 2020. They're also sharing the grid this year with the VW Racing Cup, which has been an on and off support series for the Touring Car Trophy over recent years, and it has been now incorporated into the same track time, but running to its own separate championship. So we've got more cars on track and more action, therefore, to keep you abreast of, not just in the Touring Car Trophy element of the race, but also for VW Cup. So we are watching cars then heading out onto the circuit now. Lewis Kent, runner-up in the 2019 TCR UK Championship in his Hyundai i30N. Lewis Kent has a new sponsor on board for this year, and he has some really exciting prospects ahead, because he's planning on competing in a number of rounds of the European TCR Championship, TCR Europe, and he's also been invited, and this is a real honour, into the WTCR, which is the highest level of touring car racing in the world, the World TCR Championship. He's been handed an invite and is confirmed that he's going to be competing in the round at Nürburgring in a few weeks' time. To enter into a couple of rounds later on in the year as well. But Lewis, twice a winner last year, won both of the races at Croft up in the northeast of the country. But this is the first time that he's driven Oulton Park in the wet, and actually only the third time that he's visited Oulton Park. He raced here with us in 2018, did not race last year. He made the 4.5-5 hour trek up north to compete in the opening rounds of the championship in 2019. Oh, has a big slide going into the first corner there, Lewis Kent. But he entered those first rounds of the championship, but only managed 10 laps in testing before the car broke down and was not able to take any further part in the weekend. So he hasn't raced here for a while. He's never driven the track in the wet, and there have been a few changes to Oulton Park as well, actually, over the winter. Some new concrete runoff areas have been added on the exits of a few corners, Lodge Corner, Old Hall Corner in particular. That will be quite slippery in the wet, I'm sure. And the drivers looking to test the limits now in this qualifying session in order to not only lay down a good lap for the second later on, but also, of course, to learn what the conditions are like out there, because this rain looks as though it's set in essentially for the whole day, and it's therefore very likely that the races will be wet too. And with limited wet running, not only at this track but in general in this championship, we didn't have any wet races last year. We had a wet championship finale at Donington Park in 2018, but apart from that, they've had very limited wet running time. Even drivers like Lewis Kent and Darrell Wilson, who have been racing in TCR UK ever since its inception in 2018, they will not necessarily have a great handle on wet weather setups. So the early times coming through them, and Lewis Kent, as you'd expect, quickest so far. Second fastest is Henry Neal at the moment. So, yes, Henry Neal, second fastest at the moment in the qualifying session, some 5.6 seconds back. Henry won the Touring Car Trophy element of the championship last year. He is the only non-TCR car entered into the Touring Car Trophy in 2020, or at least for the time being. He's once again at the wheel of his father Matt's ex-British touring car, Honda Civic Type R. And Henry Neal, who also was a race winner last year, and he has been a strong competitor now. We've got a car, a glimpse of there in the barriers somewhere out on the circuit. I'm not quite sure. There we go. It's one of the Maximum Motorsport prepared cars, and I think now number 101 is Max Hart, and that is Max Hart is the young Irish driver that we've got racing with us, and there we're seeing him on the screen in the barriers, and Max was a top 3 candidate for the Motorsport Ireland Young Driver of the Year last year. He's a really hotly tipped up-and-coming Irish driver, but he seems to have found the limits here at the moment in qualifying. That looks like it might be Lodge Corner that he's gone off, and he's buried the car in the tyre wall. This could lead to our first stoppage of the day, and I dare say possibly not the last, because the conditions out there, added to the fact that this is a difficult circuit to get to grips with anyway, and of course the fact that many of these drivers have not raced since the back end of last year, maybe September, October 2019, so a few of them you'd expect would be a little bit rusty, and that maybe is the case. We've seen a few drivers sliding around. Max Hart has gone off, and no sign of a red flag, thankfully. The session continuing with yellow flags out in that particular area. So we're seeing now car number 2 heading through. Now this is Richard Gilbert, who is one of our VW Cup entrants. As I said, we'll be splitting our coverage of the Dunlop Touring Car Trophy races today with the VW Racing Cup. And this is a hugely exciting one-make tin top championship. Those of you who have been watching our TCR and TCT coverage over recent years will no doubt be familiar with this championship. If you want to make a career in touring car racing, then the VW Cup is not a bad place to start. It is a championship for any car basically that runs under the VAG banner, so Volkswagens, Audis eligible as well. So father and son in the past, and we are getting a red flag, I'm afraid. So red flag is out already, and this is because of Max Hart's car. I'm guessing because of Max Hart's car that's off in the gravel trap at, I think, Lodge Corner. Still waiting for confirmation of that, but the times for what they're worth at the moment: Lewis Kent fastest on a 1 minute 57.598. Darrell Wilson has gone second in the Vauxhall Astra, so the 2 most experienced drivers on the grid, as far as TCR UK is concerned anyway, are the top 2 in the session. 2 seconds separating them right now. Henry Neal is third. Dan Kirby is fourth. He's the team owner of the Trade Price Cars British Touring Car Championship team, but also a pretty handy peddler himself, making his first appearance in TCR. He is fourth, and then fifth quickest, the first of our VW Cup runners, and that is Bradley Kent, who is the younger brother of the TCR UK runner Lewis Kent. So Bradley, 5th place overall. That's a good time, actually, a 2 minutes 3.246. And he is leading the VW Cup element of the session. Max Hart is 6th, but in the barriers. 7th for Tim Docker, who is another one of our TCR entrants who raced with us here at Oulton Park. I was going to say 12 months ago. It was a bit more than 12 months ago, wasn't it, really? Then Liam Griffin, another driver with British Touring Car Championship experience. He is 8th, 9th for Richard Gilbert, and 10th quickest for Andy Wilmot. So there is going to be a short break in proceedings then, as we have a red flag out here at Oulton Park. Max Hart's car hopefully won't take too long to retrieve from the gravel trap. And once it is back out of harm's way, we should be able to get the session back underway. The clock has stopped with 10 minutes of the 20 still to go. So by the time the cars are back out on track, back up to speed, they should have time for another 3 or 4 flying laps. And there we can see actually Max Hart's car in the gravel trap at Lodge Corner. So we'll take a brief break whilst the red flag is out. We'll hopefully have the session back underway in just a few minutes' time. Welcome back, everyone. Then the red flag has been withdrawn. The session about to get back underway, qualifying for the opening round of the 2020 Dunlop Touring Car Trophy, incorporating TCR UK and the VW Racing Cup as well. So we had a total of 18 cars make their way out onto the circuit. If you're just joining us, we've had a red flag because one of our rookies, Max Hart, the young Irish driver, just 19 years of age, the youngest driver on the grid, had a bit of a moment up at the final corner and went into the barriers. Just been out into the pit lane, had a look at the car. It's muddy, it's a bit crumpled, but it should be good to go and get back out on track again for the races later on, but he will not be allowed back into the qualifying session. The good news is that he's 6th fastest at the moment. The bad news is that other people are likely to improve over the remaining, well, now 9 minutes of the session. So as you can see, the weather has not improved over the last 10 or 15 minutes. It's still very sodden here at Oulton Park, and standing water is a little bit of an issue sometimes at this place. It's a very undulating circuit. Water can sometimes collect in some of the dips around various parts of the circuit. Down here at Knickerbrook and the run-up Clay Hill in particular can get rather slippery, but it doesn't look too bad, actually. I believe that Motorsport Vision have been working on the drainage of the circuit over the winter. The extended off-season, I suppose, that we had, really, with the delayed start to the 2020 season. But as you can see, it is still very much wet out on circuit. The car we're watching at the moment is the car that is 4th quickest in the session. That's Dan Kirby at the wheel of a Cupra TCR. And Dan Kirby is the team owner of the Trade Price Cars British Touring Car Championship team, being run by PowerMax Racing this season in TCR UK. PowerMax Racing, another top British touring car team. Indeed, the team that won the final round of the BTCC in 2019. And their Cupra looks, I have to say, particularly snazzy. I do like that white and gold livery that they've got on the car. And Dan Kirby, 4th quickest at the moment then in this qualifying session. And the top 4 drivers are all Touring Car Trophy entrants. I remind you, it's Lewis Kent on provisional pole. Darrell Wilson is 2nd. Henry Neal is 3rd. Dan Kirby 4th. And then Bradley Kent in 5th position is the top VW Cup entrant, but I understand that for the purposes of starting the race, the VW Cup cars will start behind the Touring Car Trophy cars, so the best that he can realistically be looking to start is about 6th or 7th. And you can see the performance differential here between the VW Cup cars and the TCR cars is not that great, especially in the wet. The big advantage the TCR cars have, they're a little bit more powerful. They've got more aerodynamics as well. You can see the big rear wing, the front splitter as well, which is not a part of the VW Cup regulations. But the TCR cars are quite a bit heavier as well, so in the wet they always say the wet is a good leveller, and that certainly appears to be the case based on the early times, but I also think it's fair to say that not many of the drivers really got up to full speed in those first few minutes before the red flag came out, so this has now become a real dash for the cash, so to speak, as they try to bang in some quick lap times at the end of the session. Rain's still coming down moderately heavily though, so the track conditions are not likely to improve all that much. They should at least stay fairly consistent. So the Vauxhall Astra then of Darrell Wilson in its traditional green livery heads up and over Clay Hill. Darrell still looking for his first ever TCR or TCT race win, and he has been a real stalwart of the championship, a team that is run by his friends and family, really, and they are well accustomed to running on a shoestring budget, and that doesn't seem to stop him though. He got his first podium of his TCR racing career in 2019, and he'll be looking for more of the same. Some changes in the times, by the way, to tell you about. Dan Kirby has now gone fastest, so car number 9, Dan Kirby, is your new provisional pole sitter with a 1:57.206. 2nd quickest Lewis Kent, 3rd Henry Neal, and Darrell Wilson down to 4th. That's because Henry Neal just beat him with an improvement last time out. But Dan Kirby, the man on the move then. And Dan, I said earlier on, is a pretty handy peddler, not known these days so much for his racing talents, but he is a talented driver, and he's showing that already with a time just under 0.4 of a second quicker than Lewis Kent. Bradley Kent, still 5th quickest, is the quickest of the VW Cup entrants, and Tim Docker's just jumped into 6th ahead of Max Hart, and that is of course a change within the TCT ranks. So the cars heading through on their second flying lap then of the session, just under 5 minutes remaining in this very wet qualifying session. All of the green cars getting themselves together here, I noticed, just behind one of the Scirocco's. Two of those cars are running in the VW Cup, the two Golfs, but the Astra behind, the quickest of that group, is Darrell Wilson, looking to try and get himself back into the top 3 overall in this qualifying session, perhaps. Down the hill they come. And through Hislops, the chicane, using some of the curbs, but not as much as they would in the dry conditions, as you'd expect. And then trying to get on the power. Darrell Wilson probably not going to improve on this lap, I'd imagine. He's got quite a bit of traffic around him as he makes his way up and over Clay Hill. More drivers are coming through, though, to complete lap times, and the one I'm really watching for is Dan Kirby as he tries to improve again. Or can Lewis Kent fight back and get the pole position away once more? Lewis, I think, just finished a lap and did not improve, a 158.309. Darrell Wilson then heads down into the final corner. One more one more VW Cup entrant to find a way past. Does appear that the TCR cars have the edge over the VW cars for the time being. And across the line they go once more. So Darrell finishes the lap, and it is not an improvement at the moment. We have 3.5 minutes still to go in qualifying, though. So he's got time for another couple of laps, I reckon, before the checkered flag comes back out. Henry Neal, the only person who's managing to improve for the time being. Now, the NGTC cars do have slightly better brakes than the TCR cars. They've also got a slightly wider profile, slightly wider wheelbase, so that might help them in these wetter conditions. That could be why we're seeing Henry Neal continue to improve, whereas other people are now starting to struggle. The rain has just started to intensify as well, so that's definitely not going to help people's chances of improving their lap times. To Ireland Bend there, we're watching, see the spray there as the cars make their way through. One or two heading into the pit lane as well, including Bradley Kent, who's still our VW Cup pole sitter, with the 5th fastest time so far, having lap times disallowed as well. Car 42, Henry Neal, having lap time disallowed for not respecting track limits in Old Hall Corner. I'll tell you what, it's a brave man who runs out onto that grass and concrete runoff area in these conditions, because there is not much grip out there. But Henry Neal has been exploring the very scenic surroundings of the Oulton Park circuit at the corner, at which, of course, he ended up on his side just over 12 months ago after a sizable shunt involving Ollie Taylor towards the end of the first round of the 2019 championship. And unfortunately, we have another red flag. Now, this one, I can't tell you yet what the cause is. I'm not seeing anything on our pictures that would explain the reason for a red flag, and I don't think the rain's got that heavy that it would be weather related, so one has to assume that someone has stopped out on track, but who they are, where they are, and what's caused it, I don't know for the time being. But this will be the end of the session. The checkered flag has come out, so Dan Kirby, in his first ever outing in the championship, will be on pole position. We thought the wet conditions might throw up a slightly jumbled up grid, and that absolutely has been the case. So with a lap time of 157.206, Dan Kirby is your first pole sitter of 2020, with Lewis Kent, the runner-up in the 2019 championship, the runner-up in this session as well, just under 4/10 away. Henry Neal third, Darrell Wilson fourth, and Bradley Kent in fifth is the quickest of the VW Cup entrants, ahead of Tim Docker, Max Hart, who brought out the first red flag, Richard Gilbert, Josh Coggan, and Liam Griffin, former British touring car driver, rounding out the top 10. So that is a slightly early end to our qualifying session then, but we will be back with more live action later today. We're covering every race from Oulton Park live. 11:30 is when you need to head back for the live coverage of our races. Hopefully the weather will have improved, but I'm sure the action on track is going to be plenty exciting enough. We'll see you all later. For now, though, that's it from Oulton Park.